Hey YouTube, Psychobob here again with a 3D print project. Like many people, I've been playing Fallout 4 and in-game I came across this magazine, the Massachusetts Surgical Journal. It had a very interesting design and feel to it. I liked the subtle differences it had to the Protectron you see in-game. So I figured why not, let's give it a go and try and make it. Before I get into the main details, I have to say this project didn't exactly go 100% to plan, and the model I made wasn't completely accurate when you compare it to the magazine design I'd set out to make. Part of this was due to the usual type of limitations where everything you see in game can't be done in real life. Some things need to be altered to make it printable at the scale I was planning, but part of it was just down to the unexpected, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. So as normal, I start with a very rough plan of how I imagine all of this working. My plan was to make this in the full colour sandstone material from Shapeways, seeing as there was a person in the model and I felt this would make the texturing job a lot easier. I also wanted to incorporate some candle LEDs into the palms to give the appearance of electrical crackling, so I opted to power things from a micro USB cable, so I wouldn't have to worry about swapping batteries in and out whenever they got flat. The plan was to make the model hollow, and that way I would not only save on the cost of printing it, but I would also have a route for wiring the LEDs themselves. I was planning to connect the USB power at the base, and then from there it would run up the leg, into the torso and down to each of the arms. Nice and simple. With the rough planning done, I then grabbed some screenshots from the game and some other references from the internet, and I got to work on the model in Modo. I began modelling the Protectron in a bit of a T-pose, just like normal. This lets you work easily on all areas of the model, and I would then later rig this into a skeleton so I would be able to pose it. There's not really a huge amount I can say about the modelling process itself, but my plan was to have this printed in pieces. In part, this was so I could mix some different materials. For instance, the dome, palms and the wires on the defibrillators would be printed in material called Frosted Ultra Detail. This material is more transparent, but the other benefit of it is it allows finer detail. The other reason, however, was because I was a little bit concerned about the overhangs. Whilst Shapeways does print these with support material, when coloured sandstone comes out of the printer, it's in a somewhat green state and very fragile. So think of it almost like plaster that hasn't completely dried, which is prone to damage and dents and falling apart. So by printing some of the parts separately, it reduces the risk of it failing during the printing process, and it also provides some cleaner colour separation at the joins of the parts. Once the Protectron was done, it was time to model the kid. The kid was pretty difficult for me, as I typically am a hard surface modeller. The hair especially I struggle with, as normally whenever I've had to model hair in 3D before, I've used hair emitters, but in 3D printing everything needs to be real geometry, so that meant I had to try and sculpt it. Once the kid and the Protectron models were both done, it was time to pose them. So I built some skeletons, rigged them up and added some deformation maps which would allow me to do just that. This took a while, but eventually I got them into a pose I was happy with. I then needed to go back and tweak the model a little bit after posing it to make sure all the joints had adequate strength, tweak some of the wiring routes and sculpt some of the kid's muscles in now that he was posed. I also needed to make sure the centre of mass was mostly going straight down on the leg that is attached to the base. This way it wouldn't be putting too much stress on the model. Full colour sandstone isn't the toughest material, so I was trying to be a bit cautious about the amount of stress putting on certain areas of the model. Then came the texturing stage. This means a lot of UV mapping and then using those UV maps in Photoshop to get all the textures ready. Finally, the model was ready to upload and order from Shapeways. Now I had everything from delayed orders, prints without textures, warped prints, broken prints and just plain bad prints. so I was starting to think this project was cursed at this point. I won't go into too much of that in this video, but please visit my site for a more in-depth build log that will contain information on this as well as more information in general across the whole project. For the purpose of this video, the things to note are parts arrived with some missing fingers due to them being so thin, the kid's foot broke off, the Protectron arms were a little bit warped, and most importantly, the route the wiring was going to take into the torso from the legs was blocked. I couldn't do too much about the fingers, but I was able to glue the foot back on okay as the brake was fairly clean. The warped arms I was able to sand and cut very carefully to get things lined up again, but I couldn't clear the torso access, even after attempting to drill it out. This forced a change of power source from USB to battery power. It was something I was trying to avoid, but in this case it was unavoidable. This in itself was a bit problematic, but I did eventually get things wired up to fit inside the small space available in the torso. I then painted some of the remaining parts that weren't full colour sandstone, like the dome and the base, but it was at this point I made a last minute decision not to chrome the joints or the hips on the Protectron like it is in the magazine cover. This may have just been myself wanting to get the project done, but it kind of grew on me to keep them unchromed. I was originally going to make the shoe covers also out of some green material I had, but I couldn't quite get them to look right, so I opted to leave them out also. With this, it was finally time to assemble things. This was certainly a rocky project and it's far from perfect, but I am still very happy with it. I'll leave you with some pictures and video footage of the model so you can see those flickering LEDs in action, but for a more detailed build log and for other projects, please visit my site and check out the rest of my YouTube channel. As always, thanks for watching.
Wish on the moon and look for the gold in a rainbow, and you'll find happy times. You'll hear a tune that lives in the heart of a bluebird, and you'll find happy times. Though things